and we wait for people to come in. We're not going to wait. We're going to get going. And we're going to start shortly. I'd like to first introduce myself. As I mentioned, my name is Belinda, and I'm the co-founder of the Contribution Compass, and I'm the Global Head of Research and Development for Sudar Group. And it really gives me great pleasure today to welcome you to our special event and to welcome our two speakers today, Robyn and Usha, and we'll hear a little bit more from them in a moment. So as we get ready for our webinar today, I wanted us to think about what Women's Day really means. For those of you who had read our newsletter from last month, I spoke about this notion that Women's Day is flowers and pamper parties, and for me, you know, I think women are incredibly fierce and amazing creatures, and we have this ability to balance a whole lot of work-life responsibilities as we go about our tasks and our work as parents, as business leaders, as people trying to make a meaningful impact in this world. So welcome to all the women today. This is especially for you, and also welcome to the wonderful gentlemen who also joined us to learn more about women in leadership. So thank you for you as well. Right, so as part of today, I would like to just remind us that part of this journey of leadership and women leadership in this world is finding our own way, finding our own understanding what it means to be a leader, breaking stereotypes and myths and taboos around what it means to be a woman in the 21st century. And I'm thinking especially today of the elections happening today in Kenya, and wishing Kenya a peaceful election. But more specifically is to think about these amazing women who are standing in roles in politics in Kenya, facing death threats and facing incredible difficulties in their plight to be recognized, to stand for something, and to make a difference in their community. So that's where my thoughts are. This Women's Day, I'm thinking about the women, the female politicians in Kenya, and hope that the Kenya elections today are incredibly peaceful and fair. All right, so on that note, let's get going this morning. Today's session, we have these two amazing speakers who are going to share with you their perspectives of women leadership in turbulent times. Both of these fine ladies are accredited partners with the Contribution Compass, Robyn Jackson and Usha Maharaj, and they're going to bring different perspectives of this topic for us today. Before we start, though, I'd like to just take a moment to say thank you to one of our other accredited partners who made today happen, and that is Karen Darley and the Enshrine Placements team. Thank you to the incredible ladies and gents of Enshrine Placements for getting so many of you onto this webinar this morning. We're bursting at the seams. It's wonderful. And so just if you come from Enshrine Placements and their newsletter, please do get in touch with Karen and the team if you'd like to do your Contribution Compass profiler as part of your recruitment journey or journey of lifting your profile and understanding your natural energy and what it is that you need to do. So thank you to Karen and the team for getting so many of you lovely ladies here on the webinar this morning. Okay, so without further ado, we're now going to hand over to our first speaker today. I'd like to introduce you to Robyn Jackson, and she's going to talk to us about understanding yourself and being willing to try and understand others is where your value as a leader originates. So Robyn, I'm going to see if I can find you. There we are. Okay, great. Robyn, I've unmuted you. Welcome to the webinar this morning, Robyn.
Thank you, Belinda.
Hi, great stuff. We can hear you loud and clear, so I'm going to hand over to you.
Thanks so much, Belinda. I must say, thanks very much for the privilege to chat about this. It's a subject I'm passionate about, as you know, and something I've been researching for the past couple of years and I'm continuing my research in. And especially having a daughter who's a very strong feminist and now is in her second year studies, I've also been able to see it from other perspectives about women and gender and how to look at it constructively, which is kind of a new approach today. So that said, thank you to gentlemen who are on the line. I just want to clear up some things regarding feminism and misandry. Feminism is wanting equal rights. It is not man-hating. That is misandry. So feminism today, it's about looking at trying to get equal rights. Now, it's not about equality and like my dad would say, hang on a sec, then women should be playing 5 sets and not 3 in Wimbledon. It's not about that. It's about respecting each other's niche and what they have to offer. And if we can get that right, that's how we will find equality. We are different. We are never going to be the same. Those physiological differences are what make us unique and what, especially in leadership, give us such a brilliant contribution. Something I've always said is the growth and evolution of a business is a result of a positive adaptation to change. And for a company to adapt to change, its leaders need to adapt to and manage change. So that leads me on to my topic today. Understanding yourself and being willing to try to understand others is where your value as a leader originates. There's a saying, knowing everything is not power, knowing what you don't know is. And this is where the power of reflection and understanding yourself gives you insight. It's the whole journey to wisdom, and wisdom is where you want to be because it gives you empathy, it gives you insight, reflection, and then you can adapt and change behavior. So what does it mean today, in today's challenging time? So not taking this approach of being a comparative gender stereotyping, which is very present today in a lot of the literature, but unfortunately that creates a focus of who is better, not of what each other can contribute. Fortunately, there seems to be a slight shift away from this deficit mode. And as females, we should focus more on the constructive approach where, as I've said, our differences are seen as individual strengths and niches to be enhanced and used, just as in profiling with the contribution compass. There we find our natural energy and maximize it. So as women, we need to find our own natural energies and understand that, and also understands men's natural energies. If we can understand that, we know how to enhance both our leadership traits and get a maximum contribution to whatever we're doing. So one of the things that I found so interesting was an article I found from Glenn Lopez, from Forbes magazine, and his article was on the most undervalued leadership traits of women. And he used his mother, grandmother, and family members as his reference point. Really interesting. I found his understanding of women as leaders and contributors to society from this male perspective very insightful, and also a good way to help us as women understand ourselves and view our own way of being in the workplace quite differently. The awareness he highlights from his male perspective show us as women what our strengths are and how to use them positively. He talks of the identity crisis with so few women in the workplace in the States, and quotes, as of July 2013, there were only 19 female elected presidents and prime ministers in power around the globe. Then he was also saying in the business world, women then only held 4.6% of Fortune 500 CEO positions and the same percentage of Fortune 1000 CEO positions. Now we get to some interesting insights that he brought out. He says women's instincts and emotional intelligence can be off the charts. We know this now. We just need to know how to use it effectively. He says women seamlessly manage crisis and change and are turnaround experts, sensing and neutralizing any signs of danger well before it invades our path. Come on, we also know this, ladies. We are the nurturers and caregivers. It is instinctual to be forward thinkers. Then he goes on to say, the best women leaders I know have circular vision that enables them to be well-rounded people. And I really connected to that. One of my favorite terms is having a circular management approach. Why? It's about being inclusive, being open to perspectives, being open to engage and hear what other people say. Again, that's being a good leader, willing to understand others. He goes on to say, women leaders are seeking a chance to be significant and see the world through a lens of opportunity. They are especially in search of those opportunities previously unseen. These women are master multitaskers and highly collaborative. They enjoy their own space to test themselves and find their own rhythm. Women leaders get the job done. They are good collaborative leaders, not afraid of trial and error as long as they continue to build the resource infrastructure around them that gets them closer towards accomplishing the goals. The women leaders I know invest in themselves and become knowledge seekers. They are not afraid to ask questions when given a safe platform to express themselves. Though extremely curious, it's often balanced with a bit of skepticism. After all, they don't want to be fooled or taken advantage of. He carries on to say, women need to trust, to know there's legitimacy behind the opportunity. He says, as he's learned from his women bosses and mentors, they want things to be authentic and seek to find meaning and purpose from each circumstance they face and opportunity they are given. They like to see and understand the connectivity of thoughts and how they work or why they don't. They want all the facts and figures before making important decisions. So this goes to show that women are mindful. We are not warriors. We are mindful of our impact of each other. And I know while studying, I was told that, oh, you're such a worrier. You always worry about things. And my mom would tell me, oh, Robyn, if you don't have any problems, you'll borrow somebody's to worry about. But then I realized, hang on a sec. If I turned that around and looked at it in context, it means I'm mindful of my impact on others. And if I am mindful of my impact on others, then I'm cognizant of what is happening around me and how it is affecting my circle of reference or my environment. And that is good leadership behavior. So never think that you're an over-warrior. Look at it in context. Right. So he goes on to talk about successful women don't rely on favors. They earn respect and truly believe they can influence their own advancement by serving others. They are consummate team players. They look for respect more than recognition. The most successful women leaders don't seek to become the star of the show, but they enable others to create a great show. Now, we know this is true from a lot of us. So in other words, being in the spotlight is not what drives them, but rather is the ability to influence positive outcomes with maximum impact. He goes on to conclude, one thing is certain, these women leaders understand survival, renewal, and reinvention. So let's look at what he said here. For me, I know it's essential to have multi-perspectives. As a leader, a mother, a contributor to life in general. But it's a more holistic approach to problem solving that we as women have that gives us a more grounded approach. And this gives us a better understanding of the bigger picture. Why is it that we think like this? Because we are nurturers. We are physiologically geared to think of the knock-on effects or the causal implications of certain actions because we are the ones hurting everybody, watching out for the family, looking at knock-on effects of how things are going to end up. Our collaborative nature, we like to be significant to bring about change in the world. Also, women have less ego than men. Testosterone is a competing hormone, much needed in men through the evolution of time, as was their self-sustainability at stake. They had to protect the family. But this competitiveness can hinder a collective benefit approach, much needed in today's integrated society. And that's the benefit of women in leadership, is this integrated, holistic approach where they can use some of these fundamental characteristics that are so desperately needed today. Finally, Glenn articulates his version of the most undervalued leadership traits in women. First, women are opportunity-driven. They look for an opportunity when confronted with a challenge. They see a glass half full. They push the boundaries. And optimism is their mindset because they see opportunity in everything. Let's look at that one. Why do we do that? Because we have to. We're the problem solvers in a lot of the families. We're the ones that have to keep the peace and keep the harmony. So it's intrinsic in us to take this into other areas of our life and into leadership roles. The second undervalued trait, strategic ability. We often see as women what other people don't. We enjoy stretching our perspectives to broaden our observations. You know, women are not hesitant to peel the onion in order to get to the root of the matter. They always say we talk too much, but we're just peeling back those layers. He also says he's learned that women who enjoy the ebbs and flows of business activity also know the best things are accomplished when they are done naturally and unforced. Big thing here about strategic ability for women is women leaders who don't allow their egos to stand in the way of good business are in the mindset of getting things done for the betterment of a healthier whole. Again, he's looking at the holistic picture that women naturally have. The third undervalued trait, women are passionate. While women in general are historically viewed and stereotyped as emotional leaders by men, he believes they are just passionate explorers in pursuit of excellence. So ladies, that's the reason. That is our excuse. When people tell you emotional, you just say you are passionate explorers in pursuit of excellence. Also, when women leaders are not satisfied with the status quo, We want to make things better. We tend to get things done without procrastination. And our passionate pursuits allow us to become potent pioneers of new possibilities. His fourth undervalued trait was an entrepreneurial mindset. Entrepreneurship is just a way of life for many women. They know that to create and sustain momentum requires 100% focus on the objective. And so they don't enjoy being disrupted by unnecessary noise and distractions. And this, I would say, comes from being natural organizers. This is why women like control, not to be in charge, but to not lose the rhythm or compromise the momentum they need to accomplish the goals. It's a very big difference there. Then, the fifth undervalued trait, women are purposeful and meaningful. He goes on to say he's found that women leaders enjoy inspiring others to achieve. They know what it's like to be the underdog and work hard not to disappoint themselves and others. Women leaders in particular have high standards, and their attention to detail makes it difficult for others to cut corners or abuse any special privileges. Women leaders have a natural nurturing nature and are good listeners and excellent networkers, connectors. Now let's look at this. Yes, these traits all are to us. Why? Because we are the nurturers. We look after the family. So we're physiologically geared to that again. So we take this and put it into a leadership context. Then we are looking after the people. We're looking at the knock-on effects, how to help them. Being the good listener, removing the ego, inspiring others to achieve. It's what we physiologically naturally want to do within our families. It doesn't mean it's wrong or it's subordinate to men. It just means accept how we are naturally and how can we maximize that contribution in our leadership roles. And lastly, the sixth undervalued trait is traditions and family. Whether at work or at home, he goes on to say, women are often the glue that keeps things together. They provide the leadership within the home and in the workplace to ensure that legacies remain strong by being fed with the right nutrients and ingredients. The most successful women leaders are big believers in everyone being on the same page with like-minded intentions. This secures a sense of continuity, making it easier for everyone to have each other's back, he says. No wonder women are assuming more management and leadership roles in family-owned businesses. So that's closing on the article from Forbes. And the reason why I thought it was so prevalent, it highlights why we face some of the challenges we do in the workplace. And knowing this, how can we look at these special attributes we have and highlight them? Also, then we don't blame ourselves for the attributes that we don't have, and we can let that baggage and guilt go. And we can always now take a constructive view of men's leadership roles and celebrate their strengths and not judge them for the attributes they don't have. It's about, again, taking a circular approach and working with them, using our genders to create strength, not to knock each other down. Unfortunately, many times in the dog-eat-dog world out there where men have predominated for decades, women's unique abilities for nurturing and collaborative engagement with others has been seen as a weakness in the business arena, even by ourselves as women. We are attuned to ourselves. We have a deeper self-awareness, so much more than men, which is a physiological reality, again, due to child rearing. When we are faced with a situation that we feel we are weak at, we will subconsciously subordinate ourselves. Men don't. They fake it till they make it. And it's the biggest insight I've had in my own leadership journey. It's not a bad trait. It is a strength of men's that they have the ability to fake it till they make it. They're competing naturally, if you look back historically. So in a boardroom, they will fake it till they make it. And we as women look at them and go, oh my goodness, this guy knows everything. But often he doesn't. But he has to hold that persona to be able to move forward. Men will self-promote and act in a manner that presents a knowledge or qualification, even if they really are not qualified to do what they're doing or don't know what to do in that situation. Again, it's not bad. It's essential and needed in their DNA. They've had to be the strong man most of the time. It's their key attribute to success in the business arena, and it's what keeps them ahead of the others. It's a competitive edge driven by testosterone as a survival mechanism. So what should women do to get ahead in the business world? Know and have confidence in the differences between men and women as strengths. And don't use them as a subconscious excuse to not getting ahead. It might sound harsh, but again, if we can accept these differences in a constructive approach and highlight our differences as strengths, we will not only get on better between the genders, but we can maximize all of our contributions. Women need to be less apologetic and get on with what you need to do. Stand firm with your beliefs. If you don't know it, start faking it till you make it. But have sincerity and authenticity. Don't question yourself. We as women tend to question ourselves so many times. This power of conviction is what differentiates us. You need to know your position and stick to it. Be assertive, yet respectful in all your dealings with others. Know the facts. Don't enter a dialogue or meeting without knowing what you need to know. This creates and maintains respect. Be prepared and accountable. It's my favorite word in life, is be accountable. So again, being in the workplace and in any field, it's our ability to interact and connect with others that determines how to influence, negotiate, and make a difference. Remember, leadership doesn't just mean management. It's about accountability, adaptability, resilience, and again, the evolution to wisdom. All traits and life lessons we need to know about to get ahead in the workplace and our personal lives. So as a woman, we can see from Glenn's article, we are physiologically geared to do this. Striving for wisdom is striving for knowledge. It's getting to know yourself. The more you know yourself, the more you are open to knowing others. The more you can open your perspectives, the more you can adapt and change behavior. Wisdom is learning from your mistakes and being able to put 2 and 2 together and coming up with 4. It's using logic and utilizing the collective benefits of compounded knowledge over time. That is what wisdom is. It's learning, reflecting, analyzing what's happened, having some perspective, adapting and changing that behavior, and then moving forward. So in conclusion, as a man, woman, or leader, the greatest injustice you can do to yourself in the workplace is close yourself off from learning more about yourself and others and being not open to change. Knowledge is power, and to get ahead in the workplace and life generally, get to know yourself, know how you do things and what you're good at and what needs improving. As women, we have unique talent and physiological strengths different to men that make us well suited for the workplace. It is these that we should focus on enhancing and utilizing. So one of my favorite things, never stop learning, reflecting, and growing. And I just want to end off with a quote that has been a mantra of mine for about 10 years from Roger Hamilton. It goes like this: in getting to know other things and other minds, we are more intimately acquainted with ourselves and are to ourselves better worth knowing. That's me. Thanks, Belinda.
Robyn, that was really inspirational and so much for us to think about and work with. I'm going to let everyone pop their questions as we're going through. If there's any questions that anyone has for either Robyn or Usha, or comments or feedback you'd like to give our speakers today, pop that in the question box and we'll come back and deal with some questions towards the end. So thank you, Robyn. I'm going to put you on mute. Thank you for your sharing your wisdom with us today. And maybe indeed take that and learn and grow and evolve as leaders. Thank you so much. Okay, next up what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite Usha to be our speaker. Usha Maharaj, as with Robyn, are both are partners of the Contribution Compass. And Usha, I'm just busy making you presenter, so it should pop up on your side. Okay. Hi, we can hear you. Okay, great. So I've made you presenter, so you can go forth and show your screen, and we'll go off into your session. As Usha's doing that, we're going to work with emotional intelligence, the successful leader's secret superpower. So thanks, Usha, and welcome to our webinar. And over to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Belinda. Are you looking at my screen right now? I've got the presentation
Yes.
up.
Perfect.
Excellent.
We can see it perfectly.
Thank you. So yes, emotional intelligence, the successful leader's secret superpower. And I just want to pick up on something that Robyn mentioned a few minutes ago. And she said, that we should always be mindful of your impact on others. And really, when we look at emotional intelligence, that's all we're talking about. Just a bit about my background. I come from an executive and team coaching background, but spent many years in the corporate world, a lot of that spent as HR director. So what I did get to see a lot of was how women in the workplace, and not just women, I mean, this applies equally to men, but I think let's focus on women, but how women are seen in the workplace based on the outputs that they deliver. And another thing that Robyn did touch on was women are seen to be weak when they're constantly showing emotional outbursts. And the emotional outburst is what we want to chat around today, and how can we just reel that in and take a little bit more of that control, or just bring more of that power back to us, so that we can see what's behind the emotional outburst, what's behind the emotional reactions, and we can improve on that emotional intelligence to be seen as more powerful beings in the world, as more effective leaders in the workplace, and actually to feel as more effective and more powerful for ourselves. So what I'm going to share with you today is what I call the emotional mastery framework. It's really just a simple framework to demonstrate what's happening when with our emotions and how we're processing them to be seen a certain way to the rest of the world. Every moment of every day, we're sending inputs into our brains for processing. These inputs are from our 5 senses, so it's what we see, hear, touch, etc. The brain then takes these inputs and processes them through a set of filters to return them to the world as outputs, or reactions, or responses, or actions. And what we're aiming to achieve is how can we then refine those outputs or shine those outputs so that they're perceived as far more emotionally intelligent outputs, so that they're perceived as positive outputs, and so that we're adding value every time we react or respond to a situation. In the emotional mastery framework, we take our inputs and then they get processed through various filters. The first of the filters are our personal values and beliefs. Our personal beliefs are really just judgments about ourselves and the world around us. And they're usually just generalizations. They're not fact-based in any way. And I'm going to just use a story to share what a personal belief could look like in an instant. A man who lost his axe suspected his neighbor's son of stealing it. To him, as he observed the boy, the way the lad walked, the expression on his face, the manner of his speech, in fact, everything about his appearance and behavior betrayed that he had stolen the axe. Not long afterwards, the man found his axe while digging in his own cellar. When he saw his neighbor's son again, nothing about the boy's behavior nor appearance seemed to suggest that he had stolen the axe. Now, in this way, our beliefs impact the outputs we deliver. It impacts the way we're seeing the world. It impacts the way we're thinking about the world and the way we're responding to the world. So it's really important to be aware of these beliefs and to constantly refine and shine them so that we're delivering positivity back into the world. One of my top suggestions for refining and shining our personal beliefs is to read a lot. It's to constantly fill our minds with positive inputs. My favorites are Napoleon Hill's Science of Personal Achievement, his Think and Grow Rich, Robyn Sharma's phenomenal, Wayne Dyer, Gary Vaynerchuk. There are just tons of them. It's find the authors or leaders that you connect best with, and then constantly fill your mind with what they're sharing to shift your beliefs into a far more positive space. And the same goes with our personal values. The values are the basis for our behavior and motivation. They're unique to each of us. And when we know and live in service of our highest values, is when we're adding the greatest value to ourselves and to others, and it's when we're at our happiest. And when we're at our happiest is when we're delivering the most positive outputs back into the world. Dr. John DeMartini has a wonderful process for determining your highest values. And you can find that freely available on the internet. So I'd really suggest definitely look it up, and it's an exercise worth completing to have a look at what are your personal highest values. So when we look at the processes back in the emotional mastery framework, we've seen that the first process through which or filter through which we're filtering our inputs are our personal values and beliefs. The next filter are our personality traits. Now, personality traits, whether we're introverted and extroverted, sorry, these messages keep popping up on my screen, whether we're introverted or extroverted, whether we're intuitive or sensory, whether we're driven by ideas, relationships and people, delivery focused or systems, or whether we believe that everything should be my way, the fun way, the peaceful way, or the right way. These are just a handful of the personality traits that define every single one of us. Knowing yourself intimately is essential to increasing your levels of EQ. And the starting point really is completion of a personality assessment. While in the corporate world, we used an extensive range of personality assessments, and we often used psychometrics to determine our personalities, to find our strengths, and to really focus and hone in on those and develop them so that we could deliver our best in the workplace. Now, with the psychometrics assessments, they were brilliant, they were phenomenal, but they were hugely expensive, and you needed an industrial psychologist to explain it back to you. Recently, actually, since the last year or so, I've been using the contribution compass profiling tool. And what I love about this is that the focus is on your individual strengths, on unlocking value through your strengths and engaging with others through an understanding of your energies as well as theirs. What I found when working with my coaching clients, utilizing a tool like the contribution compass, is it really does hone in on what are your personal energies, what are your personal drivers. It gives you such a great self-awareness, and that self-awareness then you utilize to engage with others in a more positive way, to react in a more positive way. You really use it to drive the outputs that you're delivering and to constantly refine and shine those outputs that you're delivering into the world, really strengthening your emotional intelligence. Understanding your personality, knowing your natural strengths and weaknesses, and understanding the same about the people that you work and engage with aids in improving performance for you and builds on your emotional intelligence. The next filter through which we filter all of our inputs to deliver outputs into the world are that of our past experiences and anxieties for the future. There are times in our lives when we have to realize our past is precisely what it is, and we cannot change it. But we can change the story we tell ourselves about it. And by doing that, we can change the future. That's a quote by Eleanor Brown. Memory is a tricky thing. Our minds play tricks on us and record events based on our perception and our emotional experience of the event. You will be able to vividly recall an event that made you extremely happy or one that made you very sad. Our minds hold on to these vivid memories, even ones from when we were very little, which may seem insignificant or irrelevant, and like lenses make us view current experiences through the emotions of the past, thereby impacting the decisions that we take and the actions that we take, and ultimately impacting the outcomes of the future. Your past brought you to where you are today. If you have memories that are impacting your present experiences or your outlook of the future, then it's time to take back your power from your brain. Using techniques such as reframing to imagine a different outcome to a painful experience. Practicing seeing the bright side of experiences, focusing on lessons learned rather than the experience itself. These are just a few of the ways to take back control from your mind. The fact is, by taking these steps, you eventually replace painful experiences with positive ones and enable your past to influence your future in the best way possible. a trick that I learned on Robyn Bank's Mind Power course was to silence your inner voice. And our inner voices really are the guilty party in a lot of the instances, in many instances, where we're trying to do something, where we're trying to move forward, where we're stepping up, and our inner voice is holding us back. Is trying to protect us by saying, you don't have the experience, don't try that. You haven't done that before, don't do it. And a trick that Robyn Banks shared was to just say, thank you for sharing. Because when we say thank you for sharing, all we're doing is we silence the inner voice. The inner voice then, or subconscious mind, then feels that we've listened and we've taken heed and we're not ignoring. But then you take back control and you're able to make the decision or decide on the action from a place of power, and rather from being controlled by a scared little inner voice that's trying to hold you back from being hurt or experiencing a pain in the future. So past experiences, we should learn from, most certainly. We should take the best out of them. We should look for the silver lining and use that to determine our actions for the future. And anxieties for the future, stressing about what's going to come, what tomorrow holds for us, is going to prevent us from doing or taking the right steps, or delivering the right outputs, or delivering the outputs that are most effective or will yield the greatest results for ourselves. So understanding yourself, understand how you relate to the stress or the worries, and then pull those back, reel those back, fill yourself with the positive affirmations, and deal with that so that you can use, limit the way those anxieties impact on your decision making, or the actions or the outputs that you're taking. The final filter through which we process our inputs are the stress or excitement of the present. To discuss this, I want to explore first the amygdala impact in our brains. You might have heard of it. It's something that's widely talked about. The amygdala is the emotional center of the brain. When a threat is perceived, it shuts down all other parts of the brain and takes up all focus and energy. It's a primitive part of the brain. In fact, we can thank the amygdala for those of our caveman ancestors that actually survived. I don't know if you've ever walked out of your home in the morning to be faced by a huge, hairy, hungry lion. But the threats we encounter today are, in fact, or the huge, hairy, hungry lions that we encounter come in various forms. They could come in the form of the taxi that cuts you off in traffic in the morning. It could be interruptions while you're working on an important project. It could be working with an inefficient colleague. In fact, the threats are coming to us fast and furious every single day. And while the amygdala isn't responding to the big hairy lion that's standing outside our front doors anymore, it is responding to these other threats as if it were just that. When the amygdala senses a threat, it goes into overdrive and it succumbs to the fight or flight response based on our current reality. And if we give in to the fight or flight response and allow the amygdala to take over how we're responding or how we're reacting in the moment, you could end up feeling the negative after effects of that adrenaline rush for up to 4 hours. So it is not just the time spent in the moment shouting at the taxi driver or the incompetent staff member, or being irritated and angry because you're now being interrupted. It's not just that moment that's lost. It's actually the time thereafter that it takes to bring our energy levels back to where it should be, to bring ourselves back into a state of high performance. So when you allow amygdala take over and you snap into the fight or flight response and you're shouting and you're succumbing to an emotional outburst, it takes a long time thereafter to snap back into a high performance state. And that's really costing you, because that is what your colleagues are saying. That's now impacting the delivery that you're churning out. Your performance suffers as a result of it. Your body suffers as a result of it. So it's really something to be very aware of and to bring under control. And one of the ways to do it is using that little trick that Robyn Banks shared, which is the thank you for sharing. It could also be counting to 10, because what you do is you're engaging a different center in the brain and you're forcing energy to shift out of the amygdala into your prefrontal cortex. So counting from 1 to 10 has scientific substance to it. It helps your brain to move away from amygdala into prefrontal cortex and allows you to start thinking more rationally, so that you're not responding from an emotional center, rather responding from a rational center. So use that, or even deep breaths to control your body's reaction, and to get you now to start thinking about how you respond before just responding. So really something to look into a little bit more if you haven't already, and something to constantly be aware of. The high performance flow, which is now linked back to amygdala activity, is something we should also be aware of. It's a really great way to look at how we're impacting the world, and how we're staying in a state of performance based on our emotions. And this is based on Daniel Goleman's work and on emotional intelligence. His research is phenomenal. He's got tons of material out there on the internet, freely available, and tons of books that you can purchase and read as well. So really somebody also to look into. The way this graph works is that this graph is based on Daniel Goleman's work. On the x-axis of the chart, we have the amygdala activity. And we know that amygdala activity is triggered by emotion. On the y-axis, we have our performance. So how is our performance now related to our emotional state? The dotted upside-down U curve tells us the following. As we climb the curve on the left, our amygdala activity is increasing. On the lower end of the curve, we have low energy emotions. This is where you're bored, disengaged, or even just tired. Performance is low as a result. At the top of the curve is where you're performing at your peak. It's where your amygdala activity is also at its peak. The emotions you're experiencing here are described as buzzed, in-flow, and energized. This occurs when your work is challenging, deadlines are closing in, and you're enjoying what you're doing. If these emotions heighten even further, however, it starts to reduce the level of performance. It's where there's too much of work. Time limits are far too short. You don't have the knowledge, skills, or experience to complete the work. The deadlines are unrealistic. On this downward curve, you are now feeling frazzled, stressed, exhausted, and frustrated. What's important is that we create a life which is engaging and challenging and pushes us to learn and grow, thereby maximizing the value that you're contributing. Even more important, you need to recognize when your amygdala activity is going into overdrive, and have steps to bring it back, to reduce the stress and to keep yourself in that high performing zone. If we think of the outputs we're delivering, at the peak, our outputs will be positive, energetic, and engaging. And on the lower ends of the curves, they will be negative, uninspiring, and dull. EQ is knowing this and managing your curve to manage the outputs or gifts that you're sending into the world. Emotional intelligence at the end of the day is about balance. It's how you're feeling on the inside and how you're seen on the outside. You want to be able to recognize your emotions and control your reactions and responses to them. Think about the emotional mastery framework. EQ is about developing your filters and processes to improve the outputs that you're sending into the world. Always ask yourself if the output was a gift or rather a ticking time bomb. The bottom line then is we're all unique. There is no one-size-fits-all approach to achieving that emotional balance. The question for you is, what can you do today to increase the frequency of gifts that you're delivering as outputs into the world? Thank you, Belinda.
Thank you, Usha. That was so amazing. And emotional intelligence is such a critical part of things that we need to pay attention to. Thank you, Usha. I'm going to put you on mute. And in the meantime, and invite anyone who's got any particular questions or anything they'd like to share to pop those in the question box. We have had a question. Robyn, this is for you. And the question was if you could please repeat your mantra. So if you wouldn't mind, I've unmuted you, if you wouldn't mind resharing your mantra with us.
Sure. It's Roger Hamilton's, and it goes, in getting to understand, I've just got to remember it now, in getting to know other things and other minds, we become more intimately acquainted with ourselves and are to ourselves better worth knowing. So what it means, it's about the power of perspectives. The more you open yourself up to learning about others, like Usha said, it's part of emotional intelligence as well. The more you're open to doing that, the more you get to know yourself, and the better you are to yourself. You're nicer to know. Because why? You have wisdom, you lose ego, you have reflection, etc., etc. So that's why I love it.
Thanks, Robyn. And Robyn, your closing thought for everyone in celebration of Women's Day?
Just, you know what, celebrate Women's Day, but I mean this constructively. Don't use it as an excuse. Use it to be constructive in your contribution and celebrate the niche attributes that women have together with the niche attributes that men have.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Robyn. I'm now going to ask Usha to share your closing thought on Women's Day and women in leadership with us.
I think Women's Day is just such a brilliant time to sit back and reflect. Ask yourself, what value have you added to others, to yourself, to the world, to nature, to animals, to whatever you're passionate about. Ask yourself how you contributed. And also set some goals. How would you like to contribute? What is the impact you'd like to make in the future? And then set those goals and track yourself against those goals and just go out there and make a difference, because really such a fabulous opportunity for women to go out and change the world. I think we are heroes, so use it to make a difference. Thanks.
Thanks, Usha. And thanks, Robyn. You can get a hold of these wonderful ladies at Robyn. It can be found at thebusinesscouch.co.za and Usha at ushamaharaj.com. Please reach out and connect with them. And the Enshrine team who've joined us today, please touch base with Enshrine Placements. And really thank you to our amazing speakers for sharing their wonderful experience and insight and wisdom with us today. My view is that we as women need to understand what power really means, and power in the best possible sense. What does power mean to us, and what does it mean for us to take the power, not to take it away from someone else, but to be able to give it back as power to the teams and the people around us. So think about, what could you do in your life to step up, to take the next step, to reach up to something bigger and better, and to take your power and use it as a way of creating meaningful impact on those around you. Now, from the Contribution Compass team, just a couple of announcements. We are starting our next facilitator training program on the 23rd of August for those of you who would like to join the Contribution Compass as a partner. So please get in touch with us to find out more about that. And if you'd like to learn more about the origins of the Contribution Compass in particular, and many other psychometric tools like the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator and many others, please join me for a complimentary webinar on Wednesday, the 30th of August from 12 to 1, a midday webinar where we're talking about the I Ching, which is an ancient Chinese philosophy. It's an incredible tool that has impacted the way we think about ourselves and our personalities in incredible ways. So if you'd like to learn more about the origins of modern psychometry, come and join me for that webinar on Wednesday, 30th of August. So on that note, thank you so much to our wonderful partners, Usha and Robyn, for sharing with us today. I wish you an absolutely fantastic Women's Day. Celebrate and just acknowledge the wonderful gifts that we have as women, and that we also have to take the power, and especially thinking about all those single moms out there in the world who just carry such a huge load and are so brave and courageous in doing the best they possibly can every day. So reach out to women around you and celebrate and acknowledge the amazing gifts and our responsibility to use those gifts and maximize our contribution. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a fantastic day tomorrow. Cheers.